Welcome back. You might have noticed from my rapid rating down there in the corner that it's lower than it's been in a long time. I think one of the reasons is I've faced tougher and tougher opponents. Another reason might be that I've switched openings recently and I'm playing unfamiliar openings starting with e4, still getting used to all the possibilities, all the responses that black can play against that. Hopefully those are the only two reasons, but I mean it's possible that I'm just never going to be good at chess. I lost my rapid game last night, spoiler alert, sorry about that. And I just now clicked game review before I started this video and it should be finished running on the other page. There it is. I did click it on the app when I finished this game last night, but I didn't go through it. On the app it said my opponent didn't have any mistakes. But here, and it's hidden just behind my camera view, it does say my opponent has 2 mistakes. Now I did recently raise the strength at which Stockfish runs during the game review using the settings here, and I talked about that in another video. So that might be part of it here, but it does say my opponent made 2 mistakes. However, according to the graph, I was never ahead. I had 1 mistake, 1 miss, and 1 blunder. And it looks like my miss was about halfway through. Not sure where it's saying my mistake was. Oh, my mistake was right near the end, and my blunder was my last move. Really? I don't remember having that impression when I played the game last night. I just remember noticing that I was lost and resigning. So let's take a look. I'm not going to go through the game move by move. I'm going to skip straight to the places where I made the mistakes according to the graph and go from there. Okay, my opponent has just played an excellent move according to the game review, and the only move that I had that makes any sense here is e5 according to Stockfish. What I played was taking here. The problem with taking there is that it undefends this pawn. Is that what it was? It didn't count this as a mistake, it counted it as a miss. Okay, well my guess is if I move this pawn, they would take it. And then I would take them, and then it says they would play rook to d8. Oh, because my pawn would be threatening their queen, so they would be threatening my queen? But then I would take this, and then I guess we would trade queens at that point, and that would have been good. The reason I obviously during the game saw that I could play this, but it looked like they would just take, and then I would take, and then they would take that pawn, and then they would have their queen sitting right there. Oh no, they wouldn't, because then I could pin it. Oh, okay. Well, I see that now. I should have played this, and that would have been best. They still would have had a very slight advantage. So right out of the gate, with no inaccuracies, no mistakes, nothing. Right here, my opponent already had a slight advantage. And the only way that I could keep their advantage slight was playing this. And yes, they would have taken, I would have taken, and they definitely wouldn't have done that because, no, I couldn't have done this because that would have been mate. Wait, so why wouldn't they have taken the pawn? Yeah, for a second there I was thinking I could pin them, but then they would just checkmate me down here. Okay, but it says their best move would be to play rook d8, but it's not that much worse for them to just take this pawn. And now I take here and we're dead even. Okay. But instead I took the bishop first, and did I guess right that the problem is that with that is that they get this pawn. They're probably going to trade queens first, which is what they did in the game, and that looks like it's fine. And then I have to take with the g-pawn, which messes up the pawn structure, and then they get my d-pawn pointed at my rook, so I have to move it, and that gave them a slight advantage. Slightly greater than what they had when we started that sequence. Okay, I understand that. Let's go to the next one. Okay, it looks like very late in the game my opponent had made a mistake here and given away most of their advantage, but you can see from the suggested move list that it's still at the very slight advantage for black that we had on the last move, minus 0.24. I think that's exactly what Stockfish evaluated the position at before. So even after their mistake, one of their only 2 mistakes in the game, I guess, I don't know where their other one was, they still have a very, very slight advantage. And I only have 1 move that keeps us that close, and I did play it here, and their best move was to push past with the f-pawn, which they did. But my next move is a mistake. I have to play rook to c1. I mean, I see that that pawn's undefended. They would push it forward, then I would take it, and they would take it, and then I would leave that there and play king to f3 to protect that pawn. Okay, and just like the last time, I played the moves out of order. I played king to f3 first, but that's my second best move. It counted that as a mistake. But we're still between +1 and -1. That should have been counted as an inaccuracy, 0.69. Let's back up. Yeah, here Stockfish says this is 0.28, and this is 0.63. So there's 4/10 of a rating point difference between them. I mean, that's not much. 40% of a point. Okay, I'm not worried about that one. That one's okay. And they checked me here. And the only move that keeps us under -1 or between -1 and +1 is rook to g3, which I should have played. And it says they would have just gotten out of the way then. But I would have kept us pretty close if I had played king to f2, because I'd still be defending that pawn. I think if I played king to f2, they would take this one. Or king to f4, which would allow me to continue protecting both pawns. But if I played king to f4, yeah, they would have played f5, and if I had taken it, then both of their rooks would be pointed here at e3. Well, I played something much worse than that. I put my king there, but I didn't know that was the blunder. And they took here, and I resigned. You see that one of my problems here is that I have 8 minutes left on my clock. My opponent also has 8 minutes left on their clock. So they were making the same mistake that I was, but they're ahead here, and I knew it. They're only up 1 pawn, but there's nothing I can do about them taking that pawn. And then I'm going to be in check, and where am I going to go? I don't have that many options. Once they check there, I guess I could move here, but then they're going to check me, and then I have to come back, and then they're going to check me, and I have to come back. And then I guess they could check me again, and I would block here. So it's still, it says minus 1.95, so about -2. My best move is actually rook to g3 at this point, but I think if I played that, they would still take here with check. Oh, and then I would go behind my rook. But then they would be 2 pawns ahead. So my second best move is e5, which I should have played a long time ago. But not only was there no way for me to stop them from getting that pawn, which I thought they would take with their rear rook because I can't get back there anyway, but then there's nothing to stop them from taking this pawn, and nothing to stop them from taking that pawn. And I can't get to any of these. Not to mention having to be very careful about not getting checkmated over here, which is why I resigned. I don't know how long I considered this position, but once they took that pawn, I realized I'm not going to win this game. Unless, like, my opponent has a medical emergency during the rest of the 8 minutes, which I never wish on anyone. And so they played really well. Let's go back. Okay, so when I had to block with the rook, but they still had an advantage. Very slight. I mean, less than -1, but what would they have played if I had played that? It says they would have, their best move would have been rook to h4. Oh, and then I just would have done that, but then they would have taken this pawn, right? Maybe. Or so they could have checked me again. If they had checked me again, I just would have come back. But then they would have gone up. And then my best move is to go up there. Yep, my best move is to go up there. Now this time, surely, nope, Stockfish wants to repeat here. Well, that's not minus 0.65. That's a draw. I think they would take the pawn at some of those points, but then I would run over here, back to what I should have done earlier, but my opponent would still have a very slight advantage. So, and I never once had an advantage. But that first mistake is part of the problem over here, because I ended up having the pawn structure destroyed, which allowed their rook to get out here in front of my king, when I took their queen with the g-pawn earlier. So that's really what started it all, was that miss, that it didn't even count as a mistake right here. I should have played e5. I have too many more games like this. Starting off with the Vienna, I'm probably going to end up switching back to d4. But I'm going to give it a try. I know it would be dishonest to play d4 hundreds of times and then only play e4 50 times and have a bad experience and go back to the opening I was frustrated with before. And I've probably gotten rusty at that one by now. So anyway, I'm going to keep plugging away with e4. This game was tough. It came down to this one right here. I think that other stuff was because of this right here. Because I took here and they took back and the damage to a pawn structure around my castled king, not only did they go up the pawn at that point, but I had the damage structure around my king. And so they were able to get their rook around in front of my king sometime in the next 15 moves. Hopefully you got something out of that. If there was a nuance of one of these positions that I missed because I'm distracted by running software and trying to talk and all these things at the same time, please feel free to leave an explanation in the comments or point out something that you saw. Even if you're not higher rated than me, that's fine too. And we can talk it out. I check my comments 2 or 3 times a day just in case, and I try to always respond. Once again, thank you for spending your time here. I'll see you next time.